you start to question your value. You start to question your self-worth.
Like, the more money you got, the more successful you are, and most people really do buy into that.
But really, I just needed a break.
What I love is helping people.
I'm Julie Balke, and welcome to The Evolved Career, a podcast where we help you determine what truly does matter most to you and how it can have a profound impact on your life. Today, it is my great pleasure to welcome Mark Carrier. Mark is the Associate Athletic Director at the Loyola Academy of Chicago, his self-described dream job. Welcome, Mark.
Hello.
So let's start off, with where you are today, and then we'll take that journey into the rearview mirror. Why do you do what you do today? Why is this your dream job?
I guess it starts from my own upbringing of being around a situation where I came from a single-parent home. I had two older sisters and a mom, and who worked all the time, and I was raised by my two older sisters, but I needed surrogates. I had some great surrogates over the years who helped me, formulate into a man along with my mom and sisters. And so there was always someone helping me along the way to keep me on the straight and narrow. So that's always been a big part of my life, as well as, helping people. And so when I had the chance to trying to figure out what I want to do once football, which was a big part of my world, as we'll get into, obviously, when you get into more questions, to really step away from it and working with Jeff, as you know, finding out what do I have, what do I like, what do I want to do. This kind of athletic administration kind of miraculously popped up, and we started looking at different things in athletics and sports, because that's obviously the majority of my background, or all my background. This kind of came about, and it just made it ideal. One, because this is where I started my professional career. This is where I met my wife, which led to other good things. And so to get back to be in a position where I have two older kids, two kids who are both now officially graduated from college. Well, it's amazing how they consume your life and their sports when you go and be part of theirs. And that part is gone now, and there's a big void. Now I'm at a school where there's 1,400 student athletes. So that's kind of my new kids that I get to be part of their sports.
Oh, I love that.
Which encompasses all type. I joke with some friends a while back, because they called and asked for, wanted me to do something with them the other day at the time. And I said I couldn't. I have to go to the sporting event. And say, what was it? Well, it was a cheer competition. And they're
like, my gosh.
They're like, seriously, Mark, why can't you come? I said, no, I'm going to this cheer competition to be, to represent our school and be there for the young ladies. And so, which was great. And the girls were ecstatic about it. And then, I've been to more girls field hockey game this year than I've ever been my whole life. And it was fun, so just different things like that.
Yeah, sure. So you went from having two kids to mentor and coach to 1,400.
Yeah.
Where you get the opportunity to really share the collective wisdom. So let's back up. You grew up in Southern California, and you went to University of Southern California.
Fight on, yes.
Fight on. Mighty Trojans.
Yes,
and
yes.
You were
that's a whole nother story. My wife will get mad there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were a 4-year starter on the USC football team, correct?
3-year. I redshirted.
Okay.
3-year starter.
And you went on a football scholarship. Now, you were, like a lot of young athletes, use the athletic scholarship as a stepping stone to get to more athletics.
Correct.
But you were a client of ours, and your coach, Jeff, told me that you used your athletic scholarship as a stepping stone to an education.
Yes.
Because you knew that was going to be what was going to propel you into the future you wanted.
Correct.
Is Jeff correct? Is that true, or did Jeff make that up?
No, it's funny. I got into football because my mom made me go play football. It wasn't because I had any ambition. I had two older sisters, and I was always hanging around them, and she just didn't think that was normal. So she signed me up for this football team that I didn't want to come play for, and the coach had to come and get me because I was like, no, I don't want to go. But that kind of started it, and my mom, once again, single parent with a high school education. My older sister was going to Berkeley. My other sister was going to a trade school, and she was just saying, Mark, if you want to go to college, you might have to go, the JC route first because this is, financially, I'm at my max, my limit. And and I understood that. So I was fortunate enough to play for a very good high school in Long Beach Poly and did well enough where I got a football scholarship to go play football at USC. But the big part about that was that scholarship allowed me to further my education and do other things. Because I didn't go to USC to be I know people laugh or friends will make fun of me. I didn't go to USC to be a football star to play pro ball. I wanted to get an education too. I wanted to be a fireman. I wanted to.
Wow.
My goal in life was to be a fireman, and going to and getting my college paid for, getting a scholarship helped my mom out more so than anything, but also enabled me to get a quality education to further my life beyond football to something I can do for a career, have a career.
Yeah. So not obviously having been a college football player myself, in those 4 years, the 3 years that you played football, 3-year starter, but 4-year football player, were there ever moments where you lost sight of that bigger goal of getting an education?
Oh yeah, no question. My freshman year, my pure freshman year when I went to USC, I, like all kids, we all had admiration of helping contribute or playing because you've been a starter. I was this big time high school football player. Now I'm in high school and now I'm going to USC, and you want to contribute. And I got hurt. I ended up fracturing my foot in training camp, and so I couldn't play. So they said, "Well, Mark, you're going to have to redshirt. We're going to have to sit you down. You have to be in a boot for a while and let your foot heal." And that was that was a tough adjustment because I didn't you think you can conquer the world, that you can never get hurt, and now they're telling me, well, you can't play football, and that was so devastating. And then trying to get acclimated to college life, to going to classes and doing all. So my first semester was a struggle. I struggled in school. It was tough. I don't think I went through any form of depression or anything, but it took a while to accept that I wasn't going to play football. I wasn't going to be in the spotlight anymore. I was just going to be a college student, and I was hurt. And so it took some time to heal and go through that. And thank God for my 2 sisters and my mom, who are positive influence on me.
But you made it back onto the field.
I made it back. Yeah. The good thing is, spring, when spring ball came around, I was fully healthy, ready to go, and earned a starting spot.
So tell me about the moment when you said, okay, I still have that firefighter thing, but now all of a sudden I'm pretty good at this football thing. And there's some teams that are looking at me, and what was that like to say, okay, well, here's why I started college. Here's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I'm better than I thought I was, or that I even wanted to be. And now these pro teams are knocking on the door. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was probably after my second year playing. So it might have been my third year in college, probably my second year. We had success. We won the Pac-10 the last 2 years. And then after my third year or second year playing, I had established some honors. I was first team all Pac-10 and All-American. Just certain things started coming about, and which was self-gratifying, but it wasn't the big all for me. It was all about our team accomplishment. But then going into that third year, my fourth year at school, third year playing in the preseason, summer, like around now, things start coming up and with magazines and scouts and stuff, and people were talking, Mark, there's a possibility you're going to be a top draft pick. I'm like, really? Okay, all right, whatever that means. I'm like, okay, it never really fazed me because it just, I'll worry about it when it happens. Right now, I'm into other things. I want to get things accomplished. School-wise, I want, it was important for me to graduate from college because for my mom, that was a big deal. And I didn't want to be a statistic. I didn't want to be another black kid just doing it for sports. I wanted to graduate, I want to have an education. So after, again, going back after my second year playing, which would have been my redshirt sophomore year, I made a lot of All-American teams, and going into that following the next season, we had a pretty good team coming that year, and people were coming up to me, hey, you got a chance to be good. You got a chance to be a high draft. You got, whatever. Well, then after that following year, January, after we went and finally went to Rose Bowl, and there's talk about, hey, are you going to go pro? Because I had another year of eligibility. I could have came back. And after sitting out and talking with some family and friends and advisors, they're like, Mark, you've accomplished everything you accomplished at SC. You got a chance to get drafted very high. You need to go pro. Well, I said, no, I have not accomplished everything. I'm still a year away from graduating from college. That's important. And but then people and people at SC and the coaches are like, no. I mean, you have a chance to get drafted high. You can't pass this opportunity up. You got to go. You don't need. There's nothing more you can do here from a football standpoint. I know you can get your education, and my mom wasn't really all about that. So I had to convince her that this was a great opportunity. But I also had to promise her that when the season was over, after she allowed me to go into the draft. After the season was over, I would guarantee her to come back and go and finish up school, which I did.
Oh, fantastic! So you were drafted high. What was your draft position?
I was drafted by the Chicago Bears. I was the 6th pick overall in the 1990 draft.
Wow, what was that like?
That was amazing. I didn't know where I was going to go. We had some thoughts. I had talked to some teams, and the Bears said, hey, we might pick you. We'll see. There's other people we're looking at. I'm like, great. I knew I was going to get drafted. I thought I was going to go in the second round, maybe at the latest, possibly the first. You always got to go draft like anything in business. Everybody's looking at positions. What's the projection? What position of need? So I knew I was going to go. I didn't know I was going to go that high. There was some thoughts. There were some people that mentioned. And then all of a sudden, I get drafted, and, here I am just turning 21, 22, and I get drafted. And the next day I'm on a plane to Chicago.
Now, Mark, tell me that the Chicago Bears coach didn't have to come to your house and pick you up and force you to go like when you were a child.
No. At that point, no, I was all in at that point.
I guess this football thing's all right.
Well, because then the reality of like, hey, here's the money you're going to be making.
Right.
Okay, yeah, let's be honest. The money was a big part of that. Like, okay, I can go now. I can go from 21 of being on Pell Grant scholarship to all of a sudden making really, really good money.
So you started with the Bears, and you were with them for how long?
7 years.
7 years, and then where did you go from there?
Then I went played 3 years with the Detroit Lions, and then I finished with about a year and a half with the Redskins.
Wow. And as you look back over that period of time, what was your biggest surprise and your biggest regret about your pro football career?
That's a good question. Right? Because no one really asked about the regret. The biggest surprise was how you got treated. I've been treated. I was always treated well. But man, how, especially Chicago, which is a very sports-oriented town, it's just how things became so simple that I look back now, it was almost unreal that doors opened up just naturally because who I was and played for the Bears.
That can go to your head, can't it?
Oh, trust me, it did. It did later in my career. It did go to my head, and it can be contagious. It can be fun. It can be addictive. It's greatest feeling in the world. So that was, and don't get me wrong, I manipulated to certain extents to my advantage, using it for my own self gratification, and so that was a real, that was being a pro. What did that like to be a true professional athlete? So
as you look back on those years, we talk about, what was good about it. Let me get back to the second part of my question. Yeah. But in terms of regret, in letting it go to your head, did you, as a result, lose part of who you were? No question. When I left Chicago, I got left because I got released by the Bears. They wanted me to take a pay cut. I said no. I said, well, we're probably going to release you. I'm like, fine. But at that point in time, I had been married for about a year and a half, 2 years. Just had my son, Mac. And my life, it wasn't spinning out of control, but I had to look myself in a mirror. And my wife at the time, and my wife still, I'm married today, 25 years later. I wasn't being a good husband or a good father. I was trying to be a great player and a great pro and live that life. And then all of a sudden, I'm thinking I'm one of Chicago's favorite sons. Next thing you know, I'm cut.
and not happy. And yet I wasn't being a good father, a good husband, because I was upset about being cut, but yet I was still trying to enjoy that life when reality was setting like, hey, you just got cut. You don't have a job anymore. You got to let's get back to where, you're still married and and we have a new son. What are we doing? What's our future? I didn't focus in on that like I should have at the time. And, my big regret, I wish I would have maybe stayed in Chicago, maybe took the pay cut and stayed and maybe I thought it would have opened more doors because of how great the town has been to me and kept me. But also the best thing that happened was me to go through that experience, because it narrowed me back into focus on the reality of hey, this is serious, this is a business, this is how it works. It's no guarantees. You're a husband, you're a father, you have family obligations. That spotlight and limelight is good, it's great, but it's not the reality. It's not the real world. This is the real world. Let's get serious about it.
It's funny because I was thinking about back when you were at USC and you fractured your foot. And that was a tumble, to say, you were a big man on campus and all of a sudden you're just a dude in crutches trying to carry his books from class to class. And it's those moments, I think, that we realize in all the people I've talked to on this podcast and beyond, it's those types of moments that really make us who we are and remind us of what's important and what we really need to be focusing on. And it's really too bad that professional sports, at least in this country, our big three sports, make it very, very hard to be a full person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, times have gotten better. I mean, they were terrible before I got in the league. They started started trying to do better. They signed a new CBA agreement in '93 to kind of start implementing more programs to kind of help athletes, especially former athletes. But it was still, your off season was about staying in shape and training for the next season. It had nothing to do with now, where you see more players are doing things to try to do other things beyond, pushing their brand or improving themselves outside of football. They've done a greater job, or people have done a greater job or NFL's done a better job of trying to promote that, and players have gotten a better idea, better cue about doing things in the off season, where before it wasn't like that. I thank my wife, Andrea, for sticking with me and helping me work through that.
So then the Lions picked you up.
Yep.
And had you gone through that lesson of, oops, I guess I am expendable. I need to work on being a more well-rounded person. So did a different Mark Carrier show up with the Lions, or were you still in the process of learning that? Okay.
No. When I got to, like I said, it was a wake-up call. I was, more family, or, more. When we try to make decisions, I was more keyed in with my wife and family. When I had our second child with the Lions, everything was geared was more family oriented, more, I wasn't shocked by anything anymore. I wasn't going to be surprised how some decisions being made, because biggest understanding too, and if I go back and think about it from your other question you asked about the big surprise about the NFL, how business is oriented. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only time is really a game is on Sunday or Sunday night or Monday when you're playing it on the field. And then you practice those few hours you practice during the week. But in the totality of it, it's a business. And those people behind closed doors, and the GMs and the president and the owners, decisions will be made for the better of the team. From a business standpoint, the money still is a big driving force.
But really, because you went through our coaching process, in reality, every business is going to make the decision that's best for the business. Sports is just higher profile. Mm-hmm. It's more money. It's, but every company, from a 5-person organization to a, 500,000-person organization, makes the decision that's the best for the business. And so, as we preach constantly, you are in charge of the business of you. And you have to make the best decisions for you and your family and your life, and not lose track of the fact that the other side of the table is doing exactly the same thing. And that's a very hard thing for people to wrap their minds around.
It is, and it's a very important part. When I was fortunate enough to coach in the NFL for 10 years, and I tell players, I was a big part of me, my coaching with telling players, hey, make sure you're doing what you need to do to help yourself be as successful as you can on the field, because I promise you, I don't care how good you are or good you think you are, the organization is going to make the business decision. They're going to make a decision that's based on what they feel is their bottom line and best for them.
Yeah, and if you're surprised by that, you haven't been paying attention.
Exactly. Great.
Yeah.
I mean, and be expecting that. So focusing on, doing your job, but understanding there's always going to be decisions made. Whether you think like I said, I thought I was Chicago's favorite son for a few years here, and I was treated very well. But when it came down to money, hey, Mark, you're making for your position, your safety. We don't classify that as a top priority position for that price tag. So we need to make some changes there, and that's just the reality of it. It had nothing to do with they disliked me or thought my game was tailing off, or no, it had nothing to do with that. That position we value at this. You're making that won't work for us.
So you go to the Lions, you go to the Redskins. And what was the moment when you said, okay, I'm done. I'm done on the field? Did you make that decision, or was that decision made for you?
Both. The Redskins came, same thing. I was, making good money, and the Redskins they just went through another coaching change. So they're starting to clean house a little bit. And the coaches wanted to get their guys in. And so I was there with the new staff after the first year, and was going through it, and again they came back to me and said, "Hey, Mark, we like you to take a pay cut because we think the money you're making, we don't think that's worthy of what that position does." So I'm like, "Okay, fine." And they released me, and then I was thinking about I had a chance to actually go back to the Lions. I was actually there in visiting them, and had a chance to sign back with them. But then I was looking at it, and my body was telling me, my head was telling me one thing, my body was telling me another. I'm flying back, and it was 9/11, 2001.
Oh, wow.
And I was on an airplane that morning, and I got grounded in Kansas City and ended up driving from Kansas City back to Arizona at the time we were living in Arizona, and had a lot to think about. And I just said, after that drive home, I had a lot of good downtime to think about life in general. I just like, what? I think the NFL is done with me, and it's time for me to be done with them in that respect as a player.
Right. And so how did you transition into coaching then?
Well, I was, again, this is where my wife needs to be part of the conversation, because her perspective of it, she came home, I think, for one day. I don't know if she came home from work or working out or something. And I'm sitting on the couch. It's like a half a year later, of me finally being done playing football, watching soap operas on the couch.
Oh, no. Oh, that's so pitiful.
Well, yes, exactly. That's her thoughts, her sentiment, exactly. And she just thought, what are you doing? And again, I'm like 35-ish.
Yeah, you're a pup. You're a young pup.
Yeah, exactly. It's, I'm 52 now. So, I mean, you got a lot of life to live here. And she just didn't think it was right. And she was right. And so it helped me get back. And I started doing radio for USC football. And then I was actually coaching my son's flag football team. That kind of got me started in coaching. Then a good friend of mine who's a graduate at USC was coaching at a high school in Arizona, say, "Hey, we got a couple of inner city kids, kind of like a Loyola, a Jesuit school, all boys school. Hey, we got a couple of inner city kids, got a chance to get drafted. Go to college, but they need some influence. Do you mind come working and coaching with them?" Which I did. That got me into at Arizona State. That's where I started there, coaching there for 2 years. Then that got me with a connection with a buddy who brought me into Baltimore Ravens. And then from the Ravens, I went to Jets, and Jets to the Bengals.
Wow. All in coaching. Did you ever have aspiration to be a head coach?
I didn't. You know what? I didn't. I was one of those guys who kept it single-minded in a sense, where whatever I was doing, I wanted to be the best that I was doing at that time. So I focused in on that. And I look back at some things now, maybe I should have had more aspirations of being a coordinator or a coach. But I just wanted to do the best job I could be for the organization I was working with at that time. And I didn't want to cloud that with any other things. Not that that's wrong or right. that was just made. That's what made me work. That's what made me better.
Yes, and you have to operate from there. As
Yeah.
it's anytime anybody uses the word should, it makes me cringe because I think, I think our shoulds come from what other people tell us
Hmm.
and what other people in our similar roles have done.
Yeah.
And we start comparing ourselves to what they've done and then deciding that maybe we're headed in the wrong direction. But if you pay attention to sort of your inner guide and what feels right to you, it just never leads you astray. It doesn't mean that the road's going to be straight and, without potholes, but in general, the mentoring, I mean, think about what a head coach does. I mean, I look at those guys and I think I would hate to be that vilified in the media by the fans. In every way, it's a very tough job. And if you had done that, it would have taken you away from what you loved, which was the mentoring and the one-on-one connections.
I do. Yeah, I really love teaching, working with the players and the kids, and helping them thrive. It's easy to work with the great athletes. I coached Ed Reed for 4 years, who just got into the Hall of Fame. And everybody asked, well, what did you do? I said, I stayed the hell out of his way. That's what I did.
Right.
The guy was a Hall of Fame player, all-pro player and defensive player of the year. What was I going to tell him? We would have conversations and we worked well together. My thrive was the 5th round draft pick guy who ended up starting his rookie year for us. That was I felt the most gratification for, because here's a kid that no one thought, we thought well enough for drafting, but no one thought he was going to end up starting, and he ended up starting from playing for like 3 or 4 years. And that was myself.
Yeah.
That made me feel good, because I know the time we spent together getting him ready to go, play at the highest level for an NFL team where the players trusted him to be out there with them.
Now, you used a phrase that I want to go back to because I think it's so critical. That's where I felt the gratification. And if people would just pay attention to what are they doing when they feel most satisfied, most helpful, most alive, and look for opportunities to do more of that instead of ignoring it as just that's a feeling. I don't operate in feelings, I operate in facts, and I know that I need to get up to the next level and be a head coach. If you pay attention, our heads, our bodies, our minds, the world tells us where we're most useful and where we're meant to be. And if we would just follow that, identify it and follow it, I think we'd have a lot less people who are miserable at work.
Yeah, that's what I've taken away from coaching as well. From playing, I learned it kind of when I went to Detroit. We go back to, hey, what was that turning point and how did it teach me? I wanted to make sure I was enjoying what I was doing, playing at that time. I wanted to enjoy playing, because I lost that in the mindset of getting involved in getting in the limelight for being a pro athlete. I lost the fact of the enjoyment of playing. So when I went to Detroit, I wanted to make sure I enjoyed the game, and I did. And the same thing with coaching and everything. I got into it. The pay was great. The hours sucked, but that's just part of coaching. But I wasn't as enjoying it as much as I thought I was before, because certain things came into play. And I was like, I wanted to make sure whatever I do next, and I remember, talking with Jeff, I want to enjoy the process. I want to enjoy that goes with it, even the tough time or, long hours. I want to make sure I'm enjoying it, because if I'm enjoying it, then I'm getting more out of it.
So coaching just came to a natural end of the road for you. You weren't enjoying it anymore, and you had the courage, and it does take a lot of courage to say, yeah, I could keep doing this, but there's something telling me that there's something more out there for me in this next part of my journey.
Well, yeah, coaching, one, the opportunities weren't coming like I expected them to come. And then two, family-wise, I could tell from talking, being around my wife, I could see it was wearing on her,
Yeah.
the variation of coaching of the what-ifs, not knowing what's going to happen next year, what's going to happen next year. And, I had some sniffs at coaching opportunities, but nothing really materialized. I just think that well was drying out, and I had to accept that the opportunities there weren't not going to happen. And I had to move on from that, which, as tough as it is an ego trip like anything else. But it just wasn't materialized. People I thought I was close to and tight with and trusted and thought they had my back. Come to realize they didn't have my back, and they weren't as tight as I was. And it was a ego again,
Yeah.
another ego and shock
Yeah.
of reality that people I thought, I'll get a job, no problem. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
And again, it was another reality check. All right, you got to take control of your life. Find out what you like to do. Find a passion, and let's go find out what we can do for it. And I had no clue. And two, I forgot how I ended up getting with Jeff, but thank God and your people, thank God I did, because I had no clue what to do.
Yeah, but you had what is really about 60% of the journey, and that's the desire and the belief that there is something more for you that's a more fit for where you are in your life right now, and a belief that you could go out and get it because you had done it in the past. It's just taking it and pivoting to a different direction. And so many people, they just don't have the courage to go, or the self-confidence or whatever it is, to believe that that's out there for them. You played in college, you played pro, you coached, and you were a broadcaster. So you really did everything that a lot of these young athletes believe is going to be their God-given career path. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, and all's gonna be well with the world. So as you look back over that journey from throughout your affiliation with football, what was your darkest day or darkest moment as you look back?
Ooh, it was I have to think about that. My darkest, I guess, when I got released, when Marvin Lewis, the head coach of the Bengals at that time, came into and I kind of knew it, but before the season started, something was going to go down. But until it happens, it didn't. When he came into my office and then told me that, we're going to go a different route in coaching, that was a tough time then, because I kind of knew it going into the year, but anything's possible to change that. And then when he came to my office and where he couldn't even look me in the eye and couldn't, had a I can tell, like he's got gut punched or something. And I knew what was going to go on. And even though I kind of saw it coming, it still was a tough. And then going home and telling my wife what had happened, you just couldn't understand it. It just couldn't be. And then people saying, "Oh, don't worry, you're a good coach. You'll get an opportunity." And to go back in and nothing was happening. It was, it's a reality where you got to realize, man, I thought I was a good coach. You question your own.
Yeah, right.
ability. People ask, you're asking yourself, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? Why are people not returning my calls? Why people I thought were my good friends who I broke bread with and won games with and went through tough times with. It was I'm checking myself personally to try to figure out why I'm asking people, am I a bad guy? Am I an asshole? It was,
yeah.
It was because I had no explanation. I had no answer. And it took some time. But then the flip side of reality is, hey, you got to go to work. You got to, I got two kids and, a kid in college, one get ready to go to college, and, you still got bills to pay. You got to, you gain time to lick your wounds and wall up here. Let's go, let's get going. Try to figure this out.
Yeah. And, although a lifetime of watching soap operas is quite enticing, I can see.
I was into it. I had General Hospital down to what was going on.
What were they going to do without you as their most loyal fan?
Yes.
Yes. So now here you are at this. How many students are at Loyola Academy?
I think about 2,000.
Okay. And you've got this population of kids that, whether they want it or not, are going to have the benefit of your wisdom. What do you hope? You work mostly with the student athletes, but you interact, I'm sure, with a lot of kids throughout the organization. And it just must feel like being a kid in a candy store for a guy like you.
It was the first couple of months. It was, I was excited because I had a job, and I'm in Chicago where my wife's from, her family's here, moving back to a place that was pretty good to me. My son was born here. I get to be around, student athletes. That was the excitement of it. Then getting in there and figured out like, all right, what do I do now? Okay, I'm here. What do I, the people I work with are outstanding.
Nice.
There's a lady boss, Genevieve Atwood, who's our head AD. She's great. Jeremy Schoenecker, who's like the second in charge. I mean, I came in, they're like, well, we're putting you with this guy here, this ex-football player. And there's all the stereotypes, no question, got to fight those sometime. They were willing to work with me, take their time with me, give me things, put me in situations, succeed, and not just throw me out there and I figured out they really, really, really work with me. And then what they saw was someone who was willing to do all the dirty, all the different things to make sure to help the group be successful, spending time, staying late, going to different functions, asking questions, being part. And, within I've been there just a little over a year, and, not only I'm part of the athletic part, I sit on 2 committees. I'm on a big committee now helping deal with the racial issues going forward with the school and how we can be better. So my role in that, not just athletic directors, I'm learning to be a better athletic director, but I'm also learning to be a better administrator for the school.
Fantastic. I love that. Like you said, you come in, you're a former football player, but you have some real great professional cred post playing, some administrative and coaching. And so you bring this really great skill set. I was looking at the demographics of Loyola Academy, and I saw it was no more than 6% African American.
Is it that many? Okay.
I think it was 5.5%.
I didn't know it was that many.
That's what the website said. Okay.
Yeah.
And you've been there a year, and things have certainly changed over the last couple months with the Black Lives Matter effort becoming much more prevalent, with many more discussions about race, comfortable or uncomfortable. And so now, a few months ago, you were in this very high profile position, very ability to impact kids at a broader level. And now with the conversations that people are having, and thank God they are, I'm so glad we're in this place. Do you feel a different level of responsibility and ability to impact these kids being an African American?
Well, when I first got there and started acclimating, I was just trying to help the athletic department run as smooth as possible. Then I started helping mentoring. I still helped a little bit with the football team and different kids. I started, getting comfortable with being around the campus, just walking around the school and coming up and talking to kids, having kids come talk to me in my office and getting my input on the athletic program. Well, within that year's time, going on my second year, now I'm being asked to have an imprint on help with race relations in the school going forward, coming up with ideas we can do, and just with the staff. We haven't got to the student part yet. Just with the staff and the faculty being asked about what can we do? Give me your input. Will you be part of this? Were you willing to speak to people about this, on what we can do, things we can do, and how we can work to get better, what can happen? So in that year's time, I went from just, being in the background, and which was fine with me, and helping the athletic department and student athletes, to being pushed into the forefront of, hey, help our school grow, make sure our race relations are solid.
How do you feel about that?
Great. I love it.
Okay, good.
It is kind of nerve-wracking because you kind of said it. Some of these things, you've been around me a little bit, and Jeff can speak alike. I'm an easygoing guy. I'm rarely, hey, I don't need to be in the spotlight. I don't mind being behind the scenes and saying what I need to get done and moving on. And hey, I'm one of those guys, seen and not heard is fine with me, as long as everything's getting done well. But when dealing with race, and my wife is white, I'm Black, my kids are mixed, so I have a history about all that because we deal with our lives every day, both kids. But you kind of said it. All right, we want to move this forward. It's not only we got to get uncomfortable, we got to be willing to deal with being uncomfortable and how to work through it. Because don't sit there and say you want to do things, and then you got to hear what you don't hear some things that you might not like. But that's how you want to hear from that's been talked about forever. That you got to now say, wow, I didn't realize this was going on. It's been going on for a long time. So don't be surprised. I understand being surprised, but don't push it under the rug either.
Right.
This is where this perception This is the reality of how things are looked at. So let's be ready to listen to this and talk about it and say, okay, what can we do to make it better? Not just listen and not do anything. You've got to be able, you've got to put yourself in a position where you might never thought of putting yourself in that spot. Well, if we're going to move this forward, I mean, someone said it, it's not just Black people, it's people of non-color who's got to help move this goalpost, move it forward so we can make changes.
Being a professional football player might have been your most high profile and glamorous job, but at the end of your life, I think you'll look back and this will have been your most important and impactful job.
Yeah, because I get a chance, like I said, to help kids better themselves.
Yes.
Get a sense of reality and I, when I have kids come in my office and talk, there's certain kids I mentor a little bit more. And I started with athletes, still with athletes, because that's a big part of my job. But when I tell them that I come in, hey, when you come in my office, we're not going to talk sports. That's easy.
Yeah.
So I make especially male athletes, I make them when they come in, I initially make them come in, but then after a few months last year, they were voluntarily coming in on different times on their own, just say, hello, hey, Mr. Carey, hi, Coach Carey, how you doing? Because I want them to understand sports is a luxury. It's not a reality.
Yeah.
So when you come into my office, we're going to talk life, and we're going to use that to better ourselves around campus. And they fight it initially, but then they get comfortable with it and they feel good about it. And then when they want to come back. Not
only are you talking the talk, you've walked it, because from a very early age, you knew that sports was only going to be one part of your life. And if you can impart that holistic living, and you're not just an athlete, even planting those seeds with the kids that might even go on and have a professional career, they'll come back to that when they have those tough days like you did, and they will.
Yeah.
Where they're only being valued or only being seen because of their athletic ability, their ability on a field. And they'll remember what you told them about the importance of building out a full and complete life. And so the ripple effect of the work you do, I think, can't be overstated. And to me, that's a career well lived.
Yeah, like my own kids, kids friends, they used to say, I Googled your dad. I didn't realize this and realize that, which is that's easy. But I've been cut, fired, didn't know where my next job was. What's the future hold. I grew up in, Long Beach, California. It's not, it's not like that's considered an inner city. It's not a city, but it's not a suburb either. So I only tell my story just to tell kids, hey, here's where I come from.
Yeah.
To get them to understand, hey, what you see now is a finished product of where I came from. And it doesn't mean you have to be that way. I always have to tell people I'm friends with Snoop Dogg.
Whoa.
Everybody's like, yeah, right. I show them pictures. I text them pictures. Me and my wife, Andrew, the times when he was in Cincinnati, we went to his concert a couple times, got backstage, took pictures. And I have to show kids and I have to show people pictures so they'd be like, yeah, right. And they're like, oh, yeah, you do know him. Okay. But I have to do that to try and gain a little street cred with some of these kids to say, hey, I know where you're coming from.
Right.
I've been there. Don't let the golf shirts and slacks and the way I speak or something, make it seem like I don't understand where you're coming from. Where I'm coming from doesn't mean I have to act like that to know how to act. That's my foundation. I don't forget it, but I don't have to act like that either to try to get where I want to go.
Fantastic. So are you ready for my most favorite part of every podcast? 2 questions, one deep and one shallow.
Okay.
You've learned as a parent, what is the most surefire way to embarrass your children?
Ooh, what is the most, gosh, it seems like anything I do, I can embarrass them. When certain rap songs come on or from artists, I start singing and my kids are always looking like, yeah, Dad, no, stop. I'm like, hey, like I said, I'm part of these guys. We grew up.
Right. Oh no, you're just our embarrassing dad.
Acting out like where I came from as, like I'm real cool.
Yeah.
It kind of embarrass them a little bit.
My theory is that if your kids, especially when they're teenagers, think you're cool, you're probably doing something wrong.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Well,
Right.
yeah, they definitely don't think I'm cool. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, you are. We'll just keep it between you and me.
Well, I have to show them pictures to show them I have street cred.
I used to be cool. Promise.
Yeah. I used to be cool.
Geez. Yes.
Just because I play golf and drink Pellegrino doesn't mean I wasn't cool at one
That's
point.
right. That's right. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So here's my last question, and it's what breaks your heart?
Oh, what breaks my heart? Gosh. Well, my wife, she breaks my heart all the time when she,
When she turned off General Hospital and said, "Get your ass off the couch."
When I try to go hug her and kiss her, she makes these faces and runs away from me.
I doubt it.
Yeah. You know what? Seeing kids struggle, I think that's always heartbreaking. Seeing a kid struggle for something, they can't accomplish something they want, that's always tough to see.
Yeah. Yes.
My kids, or my own kids, maybe more importantly, seeing they want something and not get it. My son who played football at Butler, his career was marred by injuries, and that was tough to watch. Seeing that every year he had a chance to do, make way in football, and a freak injury here, torn ACL here, a hamstring. I mean, something always, was slowing him when he was trying to make way. That was, seeing your kids trying to accomplish something, and then they're getting derailed by no fault of their own.
Yeah.
It's always tough to see. My daughter first 2 years had injuries in soccer, and her junior year she hardly played, and that was tough to watch. But she was one of the best teammates, and her coach loved her because who she was. Things like that. At Loyola, our basketball team this year had a chance to go to state. And, right before they were playing a game to go down to be into the Final Four of their state championship, everything gets shut down.
Yeah.
It was tough to see and hear and deal with, because now granted, everybody's going through the same thing, but still it doesn't make it any less painful.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mark. You have a fantastic story. I have a feeling it's not over. There might be a role as a leading man on a soap opera in your future.
Yeah. You hear that? I have a chance to be a leading man on a soap opera.
Yes. Maybe a kind of an AARP can sponsor it. It'll be one for older people.
Yeah, enough of a diva.
But I will definitely tune in for one. Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. And it's an important one. And I think whether our listeners are in sports, know anything about sports, or could spell sports, I think there's a lot of lessons embedded in it for all of us. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed meeting the Evolved Careerist on today's episode, well, we've got a lot more lined up for you. Subscribe, tell your friends, rate us and write a review. And of course, follow us on social media. But if you're interested in learning more about how you can evolve your career, you can contact us through theevolvedcareer.com or thebaukegroup.com, and that's BAUKE. Do you know somebody who'd be a great guest, who has a great career story to tell? Or do you think you qualify? Then email me. My email address is in the podcast description. Until next time, here's to your career happiness.